For our opening talk, welcome Philipp Kewisch.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Riga. How are folks dealing with jet lag, temperature changes? Somewhat? Well, don't fret. We have quite a hot event planned for the next few days. Is everyone excited? Wow, that's hard to top. You guys have been really good, and despite just after lunch, that's great. So it's time for another Ubuntu Summit, and I see a lot of familiar faces and new faces today. I'm proud to see so many of you coming from really all different corners of the world and cultures as well. It's kind of like a family reunion, but with fewer awkward questions about your personal life and a lot more talk about the open source ecosystem. So, who was here last year? Oh, that's not bad. How about new this year? Wow, that's a lot. Cool. So everyone who doesn't have their hand up, here's your chance to really create that welcoming experience in the true fashion of community. Maybe you have a new buddy sitting right next to you, so take some time to chat the next refreshment break. Also, warm welcome to our remote participants. Sad that you couldn't make it this year, but I'm really happy that we have technology to help out with that. Especially those with major time zone differences, also those that wanted to come but couldn't make it. We really miss you, and looking forward to doing a remote summit with you as well. So we created the Ubuntu Summit not only because we enjoy hanging out with you, but because we believe it is an opportunity to get better together. We want to create a space for the curious, the eager, the innovative, and the collaborative. We want to bring you those talks that capture the essence of outstanding in open source and really give you something to think about. But why, though? The Ubuntu community is a community of communities. We're bringing together projects with many different goals and direction. We thrive not only from what you contribute to Ubuntu, but also what you create that goes far beyond. If through what you encountered this weekend, you have an idea or an experience that it would make things better on Linux and Ubuntu, follow those gut feelings. Use the opportunity to find someone like-minded and take that first step towards something new. Show the world something you feel proud of, and you will serve as an inspiration for others that will follow. So while Ubuntu is a beacon within Linux distributions, the real success is thanks to all of you. Can I get a round of applause for that? Last year's summit created inspiration for so many of you. It was the beginning of many ideas that led to collaboration and fulfillment. I'd like to highlight a few of those today. Bavi has been instrumental in reinvigorating the local Ubuntu communities. Thanks to his persistence and community building, the local Communities Council is running up for election again. With that, we've seen many new and returning local communities, and there's some great conversation happening between them to really talk about the problems that they're globally facing together. Statis from the open source team at the University of Macedonia in Greece has rallied together about a dozen students that are excited to contribute to open source. Together, they're planning regular events such as a Localizers Day and also install fests around the releases. That picture over there is their release party that they did around Ubuntu 2310, sorry. They celebrated the release of Mantic Minotaur, and where did they do that? Of course, at the home of the Minotaur on Crete. So that's really amazing what they've put together. And I would have loved to point them out, but unfortunately they couldn't make it short notice due to a few things. But listening remotely, thank you so much. Also, we've seen a bunch of new flavors since last year. Ubuntu Unity, Ubuntu Cinnamon, and Ubuntu. The dedication to build these flavors has obviously started before the last summit, but we're seeing a lot of new choices when it comes to Ubuntu. Specifically, would love to call out Amy, the leader of Ubuntu, right over there. When she visited the Ubuntu Summit last year, she was sad to hear that there was no current effort on Ubuntu for education. Coming nearly with 20 years of experience in education, she remembers using the former Ubuntu to connect children with technology. So today, Ubuntu 2304 is among the 10 official flavors, 10 now, of course, about the 10 official Ubuntu flavors. And did I say 10? A lot of times by now. Yes, we've reached 10 fundamentally different ways to experience Ubuntu, thanks to community members really following their passion. Also, breaking down the barriers between company and community, we have Jason from Canonical right over here. Jason has been building community around HPC and supercomputing. Instead of just waiting for the mandate or overcomplicating things, Jason took a few communication tools and it's really started a movement. We now have a good mix of researchers, developers, enthusiasts from the HPC world leading this community together to make the experience amazing. These efforts are beginning to have a wider impact on the tech and science community as well. So can I get the next round of applause for all the very cool people here? The Latvian community has put much effort into this event as well. They've been spreading the word like a wildfire at universities, local tech companies, and within their circle of friends. So who here lives in Latvia? Wow, look at that. Paldies, kā esat daļā no Ubuntu kopienas. That was that. Still learning a lot. These are just a few examples of stories that begin at the Ubuntu Summit. With 2.5 days to go and quite an amazing audience to interact with, here is your chance to create your own stories. No matter if it's the first chapter of your open source journey, or an episode that really captures the broader open source ecosystem, or the finishing touches on your masterpiece, here is your chance. Last year in the closing plenary, I mentioned how the Ubuntu Summit is all about connecting the corners of open source and creating something together that goes beyond what we can achieve individually, beyond Ubuntu itself. So if you look at the schedule this year, you will see even more signs of that. Here you won't just see your typical cross-section of open source project, but a curated collection of topics that are on the pulse of open source. You'll find industry leaders like DreamWorks talking about how they open-sourced Moonray, their production renderer. Projects on the forefront of sustainability in open source, such as Fairphone, Framework, and KDE's Echo initiative. Pioneer work to bring Linux to other platforms and hardware, such as Asahi for Apple Silicon, WSL for Windows, and Linux on RISC-V. Hot topics such as gaming, where Linux has really made quite an impact over the last year. Also, powerful use of Linux in science and research with a great collection of talks on HPC and supercomputing. You'll also experience sessions that are your entryway into the Ubuntu community. Our magnificent community leaders will show you what they've been up to, why this is an amazing place to be, and what's keeping them engaged. Let me tell you, we have some really seriously amazing folks in this community. There's people that are organizing large-scale events with hundreds of people, or also distributed over multiple cities on the same day. There's others that are building their own engaged user communities to flock around Ubuntu with a substantial number of users, or coordinating many contributors around other large software projects or distros that are based on Ubuntu. But it doesn't take a lot to get started. Meet up with a few friends, talk about Ubuntu. Be open to others joining and sharing their perspective. Talk about your meetups on Discourse to exchange ideas. Get together to hack a small tool that might make Ubuntu better. These are small but meaningful ways to step in the right direction. If you start like this, there's really no limits to what you can achieve. So I could stand here all day and talk about some of the great things I've seen, but please see for yourself. So everything put together, you're in for an unforgettable summit experience. You ready for this? So let's make the summit so legendary that even those trolls on Reddit will want to become contributors. Now, before you wander off, I wanted to give the stage to the one person that believes most in Ubuntu, someone who has dedicated more than 19 years to Ubuntu and many more to the ecosystem around it. Please give a round of applause to Mark Shuttleworth.
Thanks, Philip. Philip, Nathan, and to everybody here, thank you very much. A couple of thousand years ago, something remarkable was built. It was the Library of Alexandria. And it's sort of legendary, this idea that there was this place that held like most of the world's knowledge, everything that could be gathered, all the wisdom. I don't know what it looked like. I don't know whether it actually held all of the world's wisdom, or whether that was, really just the story that the people who built it were telling themselves. But I love this idea of accumulated knowledge and the sharing of knowledge that a library represents. But to benefit from the Library of Alexandria, you would have had to go to Egypt, right? Today, we have Wikipedia. Like, think of the modern equivalent of that. In real time, people all over the world bringing their knowledge together and sharing it so that in real time, people all over the world can benefit from what we've collectively can agree through some sort of editorial process. And I think of that as a knowledge counterpart to what open source is all about. Like, I continue to be completely inspired by the idea that open source is the Wikipedia of software. It is the Library of Alexandria of software. It's the way knowledge and wisdom, executable wisdom, kind of comes together for the benefit of everybody. And I think it's important to talk about this because Ubuntu only exists because of the open source community. And it's important for us to understand and appreciate and celebrate and honor that broader community. And I can think of three different sorts of anecdotes or vignettes or personality types that I really want to kind of credit. First, there's the brilliant, persistent, relentless genius that just wants to do something better, that is passionate about something, and whether it's for the love of the craft, or whether it's for a love of the audience, or whether it's just sheer science or curiosity, they go and build something and share it with the world. And we've all met and I, generally treasured relationships, or we read about these incredible people who just through sort of force of intellect and personality do great things and then do it in open source. And there are some of them here today. You're going to meet them. I'm honored that they are here. But outside of this room, right, that's just an amazing thing that we should keep in mind, right? Those people could essentially keep that knowledge to themselves, but they don't. They put it out there for the world. The second thing, which is completely different, is these amazing, purely collaborative institutions, right? Arch, Debian, Nix, right? These things exist for the fun of it, for the exploration of an idea, a mission, and somehow magically they're a new kind of thing, right? They're not corporations, right? They're this new kind of thing. And those things to me are genuinely fascinating, right? It was my deep amazement and appreciation for Debian that made me think, okay, Debian needs a kind of fighting wing. That would be Ubuntu, right? But there's just something remarkable about those communities, right? Those groups where you get not so much the brilliance of an individual, but just sheer passion and collaboration. And it's very, very special for us to be sort of one example of that. They do incredible work. And then now we also have the industrial faction, right? We have giant organizations representing, the leaders in industries, medicine, banking, finance, technology, obviously, aerospace. And those organizations are starting not just to benefit from open source, but to see how they can either strengthen their leadership or conduct some sort of industrial strategy to enhance their own interests, but also essentially to move their whole industry forward in many cases. And I think we should find ways to celebrate that, right? That's really incredible, right? Those are organizations. Traditionally, we stereotype organizations as being sort of inward-looking, greedy, and ultimately somewhat incompetent. But there's something incredible when you have giant, well-funded organizations putting amazing people on open source. That's something we just didn't have 20 years ago. So here we are at the Ubuntu Summit, and it would be completely wrong for us to take credit for all of those amazing groups' work, right? Of course. So I think it's really important that we remember, we celebrate our own small role, right? Which to me remains making all of those contributions easy to use, easy to consume, right? And each of those 10 logos that Philipp put up, from Edge Ubuntu through Kubuntu, each of them is deeply passionate about taking either some subset of that software or all of that software and just making it reach a bigger audience, right? And for that, and for the people in those communities and their work, I'm incredibly grateful. All right. Philipp, thank you very much. Nathan and the team that's organized, thanks very much for bringing us all together. I'm really looking forward to the presentations and the sessions and the workshops happening here at the summit. And I hope you folks all have a tremendous time. I'll see you this evening and at the party. Thank you.
Lagrit, Leipi Lukti Latia, Leipi Lukti Ubuntu Summit. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here for the second Ubuntu Summit. I was really happy to be here for the first Ubuntu Summit, although that was a little while ago. The neat thing, the amazing thing about Ubuntu is that it seems like it's been around forever. Ubuntu turned 19 years old just last month, like two weeks ago. I remember when Ubuntu was first announced. I liked Linux. I tried a couple different distros. Things were difficult. I lapsed for a bit. And next thing I know, I have an itch. I want to try Linux. And this announcement came out. I read it on Slashdot. Remember Slashdot? A Debian developer is going to make a Debian-based Linux distro that will be released on time every, what did they say, every 6 months. Every 6 months, polished Debian every 6 months. And it will be built around an inclusive community that's welcome and friendly. I read that on Slashdot, and I thought, okay, maybe 6 months, that's really aggressive. That's the thing. It can be done. But the community, I don't know if anyone remembers any Linux forum in 2004, but they didn't stay friendly for long because it was really hard to use Linux. And that knowledge was hard-won, and some of it was hard-won from the 70s, from Unix. And so there was a lot of elitism, and there was a lot of feeling that if you come in and ask questions, you should have done all your homework. Well, that homework was really difficult to do sometimes, especially if you're coming from DOS, from Windows. And so I thought, yeah, I don't think this is going to last. Great idea. I'm glad someone tried it. We'll see. I give it a year, 2 years tops. 6 months later, Slashdot was milling and buzzing about Ubuntu 5.04. And they were really excited about it. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange because Linux is free. You can download it. Why would they still be excited if there wasn't something there? Maybe I should check it out. So I went online. I went to shipit.canonical.com and ordered, I think it was 50,000 CDs, I think you could order for free. Okay, I think I ordered 20. And I started my, I think, 3 to 5 hour download of Ubuntu on DSL. Much better than the 5 CD set of some other Debian and other distros. And I said, I'll try it on my laptop, which of course immediately failed. And I put in no API-C and tried again, and everything worked. And it was amazing. I said, this is interesting. Maybe I'll stick with this on my laptop. And after a week or so, I found some problems, went online to the Ubuntu forums, did some searches. And the funniest thing was that every single time I would look for someone asking a question, I'm like, oh, I see in the title, they're going to get flamed for that. I'd go in, and people say, that's a little vague, and we need a little more information, or sometimes this happens, you try this. And every place I turned, it was astonishing. No matter what happened, I'd look this post, that post, other places online, other forums. Every single time Ubuntu was brought up and asked about, people would get, whether of course some really great expert questions and discussions, but all the newbie questions. In the old days, someone would ask, how do I boot Linux? Or how do I do this easy thing? How do I change my resolution? And in the old days, they'd always say, the answer would be RTFM. You don't see that too much anymore. So for those of you who don't know what that means, it stands for Read the Fine Manual. And people were greeted with people who were really enthusiastic to help. And then when they did help and the people came back and said, thanks, that solved it, people were really excited. Or people say, how do I get involved? They say, here's a resource, here's a resource. And the other thing Ubuntu was really revolutionized. What really set Ubuntu apart was that it wasn't just the coding and all the technical knowledge, but they also wanted people to write documentation. They wanted people who could help other people. They said, if you're a community contributor and you are helping out, we value and recognize that. It was in California, after a couple years, after a couple months, I started saying, I used Ubuntu for a month. I said, what, I need to tell everyone about this. I was handing out CDs. I took my 50,000 printed Ubuntu disks and we're handing those out, giving them at libraries, all over the place. And by 2007, I said, I think the local community team project had just started. I said, I want to start a California team. So I said, well, I'll do my due diligence. I'll Google it. And sure enough, someone had just done it a week before. Neil Bussett had started that out. And I jumped in and I said, I want in. And a little bit later, a Southern California conference said, hey, Ubuntu, we saw that you're online at your local team. Ubuntu's getting really big. Would you like to do a booth? And I said, sure. So the three of us went there, got our red, yellow, and orange plastic tablecloths from Paper City and Party City, and some discs we ordered from Ubuntu and for Canonical, and we stood there. We were right across from the Debian booth, which threw attendees for a loop. But the Debian developers we over said, hi, sorry, we're Ubuntu. Like, oh, we're glad you're here. They were nice. And we just talked about Ubuntu. Now, the interesting thing about that, we were very new. The only reason that we were Ubuntu ambassadors was because someone asked us and we lived nearby. So there was a lot of imposter syndrome. But we did our best. Everyone at the conference, the Southern California Linux Expo, it's almost like this. It's very friendly. So we felt very welcomed, even with Debian across the way. Next year, I think they were behind us. We were back to back. And what was really difficult early on is someone who had just for about, at the time it was, when did they do this conference? So probably about 5 months we had said, we're going to be the California team. And people would come up to the booth. And they say, oh, hey, yeah, I tried Ubuntu. It was wonderful. Everything just worked. It's amazing. Thank you so much for making Ubuntu. Now, I stood there and I thought, well, I hadn't made anything. And so and I was like, oh, you're welcome. A lot of people make Ubuntu, but we're glad you like it. And the next year, the same thing happened. People would come up. People had problems with laptops and drivers and so on. But mostly they'd say, I love Ubuntu, thank you. And we got a little more aggressive at saying, well, you're welcome. We appreciate that. Now, on Reddit, I'm a moderator of the Ubuntu subreddit. Every so often, we get these stories. People say, I have an old computer. I always wanted to learn more. I use this. I needed to learn Linux for school or for whatever, from a project. And they say, I had an older laptop or older computer that, wasn't doing anything. And I installed Ubuntu on it. And now it works again. It's faster. Everything works. It's up to date. I have the best software. Thank you so much. I want to express my gratitude. And if I see the post, I'll jump in. I said, you are welcome. We make Ubuntu just for you. And that's what makes Ubuntu special. It's for everyone. Ubuntu is an ancient African philosophy. And I haven't, it's not a cool name that Mark made up. But one of the things I thought was so audacious, really, when I first heard the name and the philosophy, I'm like, that is such a broad goal, and yet perfectly explains what free software and open software is. I think the only more audacious and funny thing was to call your company Canonical, which also got laughs at the time. Ubuntu is an ancient Xhosa and Zulu philosophy. You often hear it's being explained as humanity towards others. Ubuntu is the idea that in your community, if you help your neighbor, someone in your community, and you help them and you lift them up, not only do you lift up that person, but in doing so, you lift up your entire community. And therefore, you lift up yourself as well. And to me, that's what free software is all about. And so when I heard that Ubuntu was starting up, I thought, that is a lofty goal. I don't think anyone can do it. Not forever. 19 years later, I've never been happier to be wrong. And that's what's exciting to be here with all of you and with everyone remotely on the live stream, and those of you who will watch the replays later, is that it took me a while to be happy that I could say, I'm Ubuntu. I'm not a coder. The only source contributions I've done was I ran the desktop wallpaper competition for a couple years. And so those are my first Debian package contributions to Ubuntu, and they were welcomed after some tinkering with, I think the design team fixed the first couple submissions. But I'm an Ubuntu member because I ran a booth, and if in the free software world, if you do something and you're enthusiastic and you do a good enough job, it's not disastrous or it's correctable, then you can do it again. Nobody stops you. So I ran that booth over and over again. We're going to do it a 16th time, actually, early next year. Thank you. But from running that booth, we kept going. I became the leader of the Ubuntu local community team. And I became a member of the Ubuntu local community council. And now I'm a member of the Ubuntu Community Council. And there's nothing special about me other than that no one told me to stop. But I wasn't a tech whiz. I understand a lot of the technical stuff. I understand displaced managers, and X a little bit, Wayland a little less. I understand init. I understood Upstart. Systemd I don't understand, but qualified people were dealing with all that stuff, and I didn't have to. Anytime there's something I'm into, I can change it. Anytime there's something I'm not, I just ignore it, and really smart people make it happen. That's what's nice about Ubuntu, is that I could write documentation. I could help people. I could answer questions and explain things. And that was enough to become an Ubuntu member. And so everyone has a way they can contribute. So for all of you who are here and being excited and attending the talks and asking good questions of the speakers, for all of you who are on the live stream watching this because you really love Ubuntu and you just want to know more about it and getting started, or those of you on Discourse, the Ubuntu Community Hub, those of you on Reddit, those of you on the Ubuntu forums, those of you on Stack Exchange, Ask Ubuntu, any fan forum anywhere, where you see someone asking, how do I get started? What Linux distro should I pick? I've never run Linux before. How do I put Linux, or how do I put Ubuntu on a USB disk so that I can get started, install it? If you've seen those questions, if you've upvoted them for visibility, if you've answered them, you are part of Ubuntu too, a major, giant part of Ubuntu, because aside from all the technical, amazing things that Mark spearheaded and Debian spearheads and all these companies do, it's a great community. All the software comes in a big cauldron pot. It was just Halloween, so just imagine that. It all comes together. What's most important is not just the technology. It needs to be there, it needs to be stable, it needs to be secure, it needs to be easy to use and accessible. And a lot of people work on that. But if you can't work on that, instead you can make it more welcoming, you can help other people. That is such an important and big part of making software accessible and exciting and fun to use. Now, if you go to any official Linux forum for any distro, no matter what distro it is, you will find that more or less people are really nice and kind as a whole. There are some flame wars, there are people who say, why didn't you read the documentation? That always exists. But at the time Ubuntu was envisioned, we stood out. It was really, really special. It was such a good idea and made Ubuntu so popular so quickly that nowadays everybody does it. You're expected to be civil. Not on the fringe fan forums, and that's okay. There's a place for that too. And some of the flame wars are kind of fun. For example, if I ask you, here's one that always gets laughs. Raise your hand if your favorite text editor is VI. Okay. Now, keep your hand up if the reason it's your favorite is because you tried it a few years ago and still haven't figured out how to quit. Right. 20 years ago, that would start a fight. Now, I think Nano is the new Ed. I think that's my favorite text editor. Yeah. But we're passionate about our workflow, the tools we love. But 20 years ago, people would unironically fight about what's the best text editor and why can't other people see reason. Today, I can tell that joke, and everybody laughs because everyone, we have our favorites, right? So Ubuntu's really changed the tide of that as well. And so when I was here last year, I had been a part of the Ubuntu community for about 17 years, actively, using Ubuntu for 18 and a half years. I waited until, sorry, Mark, I waited till May, 2 weeks after 504, and I said, okay, there's something here. I tried it. And then I said, well, I should have tried this 6 months ago. So I've been using it for a long time. And when I come to these events, when I run a booth and people come in and are, when snaps were announced, when the Ubuntu Fund was announced, when snaps were announced, when Windows Subsystem for Linux was announced, when Unity was announced, when going back to GNOME was announced, all those times I'm at a booth, I'm the face of Ubuntu, people come up to me and they just want a person to ask questions to and say, what does this mean? With WSL, should I be concerned? With GNOME, how is that working? Is that going to be something weird, or is it happy? And of course, I'm always positive, and you have to be friendly, which is easy to do. But I say, this is what's going on. This is what works. This is the cool thing about this. And people always go away and say, thank you for that. That makes me happy. So that makes me, more reassured. It's important. Positivity, optimism is good. Now, blind positivity is not so healthy. But we have so many great things to be happy about in the Ubuntu community, and it's such a positive place. Now, coming to Ubuntu Summit, I knew a ton of people here. I know how amazing it is every time Ubuntu people get together. It's like everyone's in a good mood, everyone's happy. It's just a generally welcoming thing. I remember some some of the younger contributors who were very new, had never been to an Ubuntu event before, were here. Some of the podcasters and media were there, and I talked to them, and I said, so what do you think about the summit? I knew what I was in for. It was exactly as wonderful as I planned. It was amazing. I was kind of expecting it. I kind of took it for granted. And I remember that the one comment I got over and over and over again from newcomers last Ubuntu Summit was, what I can't really believe is how welcoming and friendly every single person I've ever talked to or run into is. The talkers are super friendly. They answer the questions nice. You run in the hallway. There's no ego. They're not pretentious. They're like, hi, how are you? One person said to me, anytime I walked by a group of people, you could tell that they were really in this group. There was on this team, and they were just talking, and I'd hear something that was sort of interesting, intriguing, and I'd stop and pause for a second to hear, what they were talking about. And he said, every single time I did that, they'd see me say, hey, pull up a seat, join us. What do you think? He said he didn't meet one group of people who weren't welcoming. Now, I took that for granted. I thought that was nothing special. That's how you're supposed to act when you're in an Ubuntu event. But maybe that should be normal. But it isn't always. So for all of you who are doing that hard work, being welcoming, friendly, so while you're here, those of you here, obviously be welcoming and invite people, be inclusive. But remember that it makes an impression. It ripples outward. I think Ubuntu has really changed the Linux ecosystem for the better. Not technologically, which every improvement any distro makes raises the bar, but in friendliness and welcoming and inclusivity. So I'm very, very proud to be here at the Ubuntu Summit. Number 2, next year's the 20th anniversary. I can't announce this, I assume there's going to be a third one, we'll see. No one told me. But it's something amazing. And so this year is going to be something special. There are a billion different talks. I wish I could be at every single one of them, but unfortunately I can't. So I do want to talk about some different things. I went a little bit. So here's some housekeeping. But, so I want to thank everyone here for my open source journey, my Ubuntu journey. We're all part of it. And so I want you, before I go on and do the boring housekeeping stuff, we are all Ubuntu, all of us. All of you here, all of you on the live stream, people viewing there, even people on Reddit. So give yourselves all a giant hand. Okay, so first off, there's a bunch of housekeeping things here. Some of you might already know this because you may have checked your email today. Good news. Every single day, we have an email prepared for you. It goes out, I think, by 6 a.m. local time, and it will tell you what to expect. No crossed fingers, I saw that. Every 6 a.m. local time. So it will tell you basically what to expect for that day, some highlights. Of course, we have the web page that has the timetable of all the talks. There's some specific things. So read that every day. It's not boilerplate. Somebody sat down and writes it every single day, and it's done specially. It's not automated. It's not spam. So a couple fun things. First of all, we have a group photo tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. right here. In the plenary room. So if you want to be in the group photo, 11 a.m. right here, and that's always a big fun thing. It makes a great photo for our slides for next year's summit. Some other things too. On the topic of photos, we're all wearing lanyards. I'm not. I'm on stage. I'm a VIP. And also, it rustles with the mic. They told me please don't wear it. So we're all wearing lanyards. So if you see someone wearing a white lanyard, they're expressing their desire to not be photographed or videotaped. So please respect that. And when you're posting your photos on social media with the hashtags, which were in the email, hashtag Ubuntu Summit, hashtag Ubuntu Summit 2023, and so on, check your emails. Do double check that you didn't accidentally get someone in there, and make sure to crop the photo before you post it to social media. People have a billion different reasons not to be photographed or not be published, so please respect that. And then if they have an orange lanyard, you are A-OK. Of course, you can also always just ask people, hey, can I take your picture? Nothing wrong with that. But white lanyard means they've already answered. Let's see. We want to do a thing. What's the next slide? So I just was up here talking a lot about how awesome we all are at Ubuntu events and how awesome we are in the community. And that's due to the Ubuntu Code of Conduct. Now, any of you who are Ubuntu members, like myself, we've read it, we've signed it. If you have not read it, you can. Here's a QR code, and you can go and visit that. It's very easy, very simple. I'll sum it up really briefly for the purposes of housekeeping. Basically, it means be excellent to each other. When you are after hours and at the one of the parties, or you're at the bar and people start talking about why Emacs is better than VI, or why Pico is better than, or not Pico, why Alpine is better than Mutt, or whatever the other thing is. It's a good humor, respect each other, be kind, and so on. You know, there's no reason to fight about these things. If you don't like something, you can uninstall it or install something else. Or you can give them persuasive arguments. Does it have this feature? You can convince them. So respect each other, be kind. That's what makes Ubuntu special. I don't actually think that's going to be a problem here. For you live streamers, remember that on Reddit, please. I can delete your comment. Let's see, we have, so as I'm talking about getting together and chatting and having fun, some of you couldn't make it, or some of you want to keep talking afterwards or get together. We have a great Ubuntu Summit Telegram channel where we have a giant group where you can join in and chit-chat with other attendees. So it's more like an extended virtual hallway track that persists even after we kick you all out of the hallways for the night. And some of you say, well, Telegram is proprietary, and I like free software. So do we. We love free software. So we also have an Ubuntu Summit Matrix channel that you can also join in. They are bridged. So you will get the same content and the same attendees and same hallway track, no matter what you choose. So you are all set. Let's see. So we have swag bags. So there's an afternoon break that is at 4 o'clock, and you can get your swag bag then. Those of you who are flying in tomorrow and are watching on the live stream and saying on the plane and saying, oh no, what now? Well, you can get your swag bag anytime during the summit on days 2 or 3 on Saturday or Sunday. So don't worry. If you don't pick it up, you get busy chatting with someone and you miss it, you can get it tomorrow. Not a problem. We have a lot of great talks coming up, and we have as well a welcome reception tonight. And I'm glad they gave me a clipboard. I think they moved it. So we have a welcome reception from 6 to 8 right here in the Radisson Blu, Latvia, halls 1 and 2. So you're about in the right place, and that's where you can come along, and it'll be fun. We'll get together and chit-chat and so on. And that's all the housekeeping I have. So check your emails every day. Be nice, be awesome, be excellent to each other. Be awesome, attend the talks. We have so many amazing things to talk about. The hallway track's always the best part. We have some great talks coming up. And thank you for being a part of the Ubuntu community. We have a great talk coming up at 3, which is a little bit of a longer break than we usually have. So normally we're going to have a little 5-minute break between talks. Some talks we're going to have a longer break between. But we are also going to have refreshment breaks. We're going to have lunch, of course, tomorrow and Sunday. And, we're going to just have a good time. We're going to have fun. We're going to learn a lot about Linux and other cool technologies, not just about what Ubuntu and Canonical are doing, but what other companies and projects and teams and communities are doing with Ubuntu, whether that's technologically something cool, whether it's something cool like how to print and the printing subsystems, all the technical things, or how people are building projects, or how people are coming together and forming local community teams that advocate for Ubuntu and provide local support in a location where it's off the beaten trail, in languages where you don't necessarily see a lot of support. All those are happening by just regular people who love Ubuntu, like all of you. So have fun, enjoy the summit, and there'll be another talk next talk is at 3 p.m. So take a break, and we'll see you back in a couple of minutes.